Hello everyone! I found this game very interesting, analyzed it, and now I would like to share the analysis with you. So let's start. This is the Sicilian defense Rossolimo attack. B31 is the SEO code. And in this fianchetto variation, so where black does this fianchetto here, it's very popular now. So now here Kingscrusher played C3, which isn't the most popular move at the time. The most popular move is castles, and the main line goes as follows: bishop g7, now c3 indeed, and now knight f6, and d4 cannot be played because white loses a pawn there. So rook e1 defending the pawn, black castles, now d4, exchange of pawns, and d5. Here taking on d5 doesn't do any good because black can take the knight here. So instead e5, and knight goes here. After this exchange, the most popular black moves are knight a5 going to c4 potentially, and bishop f5 getting on this nice diagonal. And in some lines white may get a kingside attack, this offensive pawn structure. Black may get nice knight outposts, so it's about equal. So let's look at the game. c3 immediately was played instead of castles. Now black played bishop g7. Maybe a little bit more interesting would have been to play knight f6 here, which would prevent d4 for the same reason as I have already showed you. But bishop g7 was played, and now d4 is good. And instead of playing this exchange, black could try to be a little bit annoying with queen b6, forking the pawn and the bishop. Now queen d3, defending the bishop. And now black could play, for example, this variation where white has to sack a pawn. But if, for example, this happens, white should be still better here and have good compensation for the pawn. So that's maybe another variation that would be interesting to see played by Kingscrusher. So let's continue. Black didn't play queen b6, instead just exchanged here and played d5. d5 isn't that good in this position because the knight is not developed yet, the g knight. So e takes is very good because it gains a tempo on the queen. And now queen could go to d6 or f5, rather d6. That would be maybe a little bit better than d8, but of course black intended later, after this, is practically forced in order to not to lose material for black. Now this is a very interesting point because there is a chance of going into an endgame. The endgame is very good for white. The endgame occurs as follows: instead of queen a4, and this is, in my opinion, a theme that may occur in other positions as well, bishop a4, and after b5, which is forced in order not to lose material, just take the knight, and the queen is defended by the bishop. So black cannot play queen takes queen because you lose a piece, and after just taking the bishop, now black loses the right to castle and may lose a pawn if white wants to take it, or white could as well delay the taking of the pawn with bishop f5 or something. This position looks very nice. However, queen a4 was played, and now this practically spoils most of white's advantage that he had with that tactical retreat. So just this, and white loses a pawn. It's not a big deal, but white has lost a pawn. Now this move isn't the greatest as well. Black didn't refute it properly, but my engine suggests bishop e2 here. If bishop c4 was played in the game, it was played in the game. Now instead of queen a5 going for a queen exchange, black could try to play check here, and after the bishop blocks, just put a little bit of pressure on the white bishop, and that would actually force a queen exchange, where black should be a little bit better, because well, after knight f6, for example, white has the bishop here, but not very good pawn structure on the queen side, and black has an extra pawn, so black should be preferred. And yes, so that's actually a funny thing. If you want to force a queen exchange here in this position, the way to do it is not to play queen a5, but to play the check, which forces queen exchange. Yes, but black played queen a5, hoping for a queen exchange, which of course is not accepted. And now e6 shuts the bishop off for the moment, but after white plays bishop a3, and black plays knight e7, now both sides castle, and b5 is going to free the black bishop in theory. However, now is the question, what does white do here? Putting the rook on the e-file looks good only in order to maintain control over the e5 square, but the e5 square cannot be taken over by the knights at the moment, because the other knight is hanging then. So at the moment it's not absolutely necessary to play rook e1, and the engine suggests not to do it. But well, rook e1 was played, keeping control over e5, and now black defends his knight. White actually decides to double on the e-file, which is only semi-open, and in order to restrain e5 and maintain control over that square. Well, I was not quite convinced by that idea. Now the bishop has to go to d3, and the queen retreats in order to make place for the knight to go there. It goes to b6. The engine suggests c7 rather. Well, now white could try and play c4 in this point. White didn't. White doubled on the e-file, and now the knight comes in there, and white transfers the queen to the king's side. And now black made a terrible blunder. This position here is about equal, I'd say, but f6 is a terrible move. Now notice, black's bishop is not developed, so the rooks are not connected, and black now creates a lot of weaknesses on the king's side. All these pieces are on the queen's side, and Kingscrusher takes advantage of that with the very accurate and good timed sacrifice. Bishop takes g6, and after queen h6 there is no way to defend g6 pawn, because knight e7 could be taken. Knight e7, by the way, my engine now suggests for black to sack the knight here, so we already see it's not looking very great. Black played knight e7 to defend the g6 pawn, and now bishop takes e7 is good, but even better is rook e4. Rook e4 is really crushing. For example, what can black do? Black could try to play e5, for example. That's a possibility. There is not really a good way to defend g6 properly, because the knight can be taken any time, of course. For example, an engine line would go e5, Now bishop takes, and after rook takes there is queen takes, and after now king f8, nearly all other variations, well, the two remaining moves like rook g7 and king h8 just get mated immediately. So now king f8, and after rook h4, which is threatening mate, as well, there is the threat of taking this pawn here because of the pin, and black is completely busted here. For example, rook f7 trying to make place for the king to go. Now just take there, again threatening mate, and for example, if black tries to defend the rook, now it's just completely lost, because black cannot even retake the rook, because he's just mated then. So this is mate in 9 or something, so total crush. Rook e4 is hard to see, of course, because there is just an awful lot of lines to calculate. Taking that knight is good too. White is winning anyway, and here black of course has to play king there, and now knight e5 was played in the game. As Kingscrusher already pointed out, queen takes f6 is very good, because after rook f7 there is this check, and then there is a fork here, now attacking e6, which is the only thing that is shielding the black king from massive onslaught of the rooks on the e-file, which now come to life. And after, for example, rook f6 trying to defend that, black is completely lost, because, well, he could take the rook. Even more crushing is this check here. Black cannot go to those two red squares because it will be mated there, and now just threatening to win the queen in effect, and now white already has material advantage, which is sufficient to win the game, as well as tactical shots to make. So now this was not played, instead knight e5 was played here. Knight e5 is a bad move, which is now equal. White is 2 pieces for a pawn down and has to try to draw this by playing to the d-file and trying to get something. Rook e3 is just losing now, and this rest of the game is actually pretty pointless, because it's just winning on time in effect. So that's my analysis. This final position where black lost on time is about equal, because it's very hard to win for either side. I have actually no idea how this would end, as I admit. 2 pieces versus the rook, but white has 2 pawns for the for those, well, rook and 2 pawns for 2 pieces, and its material is equal, so counting it in points, but it's very hard to say who would win here. I think it would be a draw. Doesn't actually really matter as well in a 5-minute game, because this would just be completely very difficult to play accurately. So black lost on time, and that's the game. So the 2 main points that I wanted to make were this tactic of here bishop a4, here bishop a4, defending the queen and taking there, because black has to ruin his structure and is denied of castling. So this tactic may occur in your games, for example. And another point was, if you have here, if you can't see a way well, if you play such a move and don't actually see the continuation, there's a good chance that you might just have lost your advantage.